Blessings 8. Very little actually changed after I was officially Celestine's apprentice. The older witches still pushed me and Heather to the side for being too young. Jens was old enough they let her stay, so long as she kept fetching and carrying for them, and did most of the cleanup, though that was largely just spreading the ashes of the fire to encourage new growth. Outside of chatting with Heather about life in Cliff Bottom, her fishing village on Emberstone Lake, and having her teach me some sailor knots she knew, knots were useful, a lot of my time after the ride ended was spent jotting down my visions in my notebook and thinking on them. In the moment I had understood the entirety of what I was seeing. I knew the stele that was shattered was ancient and recorded a legacy that enraged me for being lost. Yet now I had no inkling of who or what had been buried underneath it, or what story it told. The style made me think it had been Vrykul, or ancestors' ancestors, one of the ones who had sheltered the first humans in Tyrstfall Glades so long ago. But it had been here, in Gilneas, not further north in Lordaeron's heartland. And it was shattered by men wearing gleaming armor that stood in the noonday sun. Was there a particular meaning behind what I'd seen? Were they just random snippets of the past? Had I been given visions for some nebulous purpose? If I hadn't already known the Keepers existed before the rite, the sheer magnificence Freya had given off as she blessed that wild god before the tree she planted would have made me believe. But it didn't seem relevant. Special, important, but not something that provided guidance towards what I should do. I'm probably overthinking it, I mumbled aloud, closing up the English section of my notebook and putting away my quill. Overthinking what? Celestine asked, then shook her head before I could answer. The visions, of course. Do not dwell too long on them. Some go mad thinking on the importance of what is to come. In my view, they are history, our past, held through the ages by Taloran and gifted to us to sustain our legacy. In my own right, I saw the Green Lady, another name for Freya, alongside the Life Warden and Ever Dreaming. Old Grimslayer told me it meant I would have a deep connection to plants. She shrugged. She wasn't wrong, but Erwin, your mother, she does so as well and never saw her. She simply has less power to which to utilize her skills with than I do. Your mother remains better and faster at finding why a plant withers or fails to grow than I am, and is swifter at resolving it in most cases. Old Grims never saw that from what your mother said of her visions, so, as you said, don't overthink it. I nodded, a little smile on my face. What would Mama think of Celestine saying she was better than her at something? Okay, are we going to leave soon? Soon. With the concern of the widow, we will be traveling as a group until we are far from its reach. Some will head south to Stormglen, while we continue on back to Bleakgrove. Sadly, your new friend will be taking a different path. Pouting, I got up, brushing the snow from my skirt. Okay, can I go say goodbye? Jens was kind of a jerk, even if she had laid off on calling me noble for wearing good clothes. She wasn't nice and was very much a teenager. Heather, on the other hand, was super interested in everything to do with being a witch. She was quiet until you hit on something she wanted to talk about, then she just wouldn't stop talking. I found it quite endearing rather than annoying, which I think she appreciated, if she even noticed. You can, Celestine nodded. We will be leaving well before noon, so you don't have long. With a short grunt of acknowledgement, I dashed off through the shallow snow towards Heather and her mother. I probably wouldn't see her again for a very, very long time, but it would be good to have peers amongst the other witches. Not that I was fooling myself with my rationalization. I was starved for people who I could just chat about my interests with. I was an adult in a child's body, with the brain of a child. She was my friend because I liked spending time with her. That's all that was really needed. Hey Heather, I said, skidding slightly as I came to a stop in front of her and her mother. We won't be going the same way, so I came to say goodbye. Hi Gwen, and I know. She looked unhappy about it, same as me. If we were going the same way, maybe I could have gotten a lesson from Celestine, or had her supervised you showing off your magic. Mom was interested too. Jocelyn nodded, a small smile on her face as she watched us. It's a shame, but we do live in opposite directions. I sighed. Emberstone Lake was one of Gilneas's biggest land features. A highland lake up in the Amber Hills that was fed by water from the Alterac Mountains. It was massive on the maps. But we shouldn't let that stop us, I said, forcing a smile upon my face. It was funny. I hadn't had someone I could call a friend, and after just a few days of having one, separating felt miserable. When we're older, we can come visit each other. I've always wanted to see the big lake. Mama never took us out that way. We'd love to have you, but it won't be for many a years yet, I think, Jocelyn said, ever nodding in agreement at first before she turned crestfallen. Ever was just 12, 3 years older than me. Still a child, albeit only just. Adulthood officially came at age 13, when most boys left their parents to move in with their masters, or girls had their first cycle. I was not looking forward to that, or any part of puberty. Yeah, it'll be a while, I said. But still. Heather smiled. I'd like it. We spent a little longer talking, coming up with silly ideas of what we should bring each other as gifts when we met up again. Before too long, and far too soon, it was time to leave, and I waved goodbye. For all that the trip out of the Black Vault was in a group of 13, splitting down to 8 when we passed the point the Stormglen witches turned away, it was still lonely. At least Celestine told me before I was put to sleep and moved. Even let me take part in making the soporific, so I knew exactly what I was getting dosed with. Mistress Celestine and I left Old Grimm's behind in Bleak Grove, getting on Hazel and Sable and starting our way back north. The weather had gotten worse again as winter deepened, and it was pretty clear we'd miss even the tail end of Winter's Veil and the turning of the year no matter how much we tried to force our way back home. And even with how much I missed Mama, I wanted to tell her about what happened, the things I saw, and talk to her about my new friend. It was too cold for me to want to try and force our way back. Which was why we were looking for somewhere to hole up until the snow stopped falling from the sky. It didn't help that we lost the road under all the snow. I see smoke, I said, pointing it out from my perch atop Hazel. Celestine was leading Sable rather than riding her, giving the horse a break from carrying her weight. I tried to copy her briefly, only to get exhausted and slow us down even more. The snow was up past my knees. My boots were still wet from that. Maybe a mile away? No, a little further. Celestine glanced in the direction and nodded. I see it. Come, Sable. The snow was still coming down as we made our way into the village. A beautiful spread of snowflakes falling from the sky. It was truly picturesque, and also really cold. As villages went, it was one of the smallest I'd seen. If more than 30 people lived here, I would be surprised. We were way off the main road. Not only did there not seem to be a coaching inn, I couldn't even see a pub. Everywhere had a pub. Maybe it was a large farmstead, like the Tollbeggars. We're lost, aren't we? I said, getting a murmur of agreement from Celestine. Lacking any better options, we made our way to one of the houses and Celestine pounded on the door. The only real places I could see to shelter our horses was either an old empty firewood shed or under a large evergreen hawthorn in the center of the village. Either way, they were going to have a miserable time until we left. At least we had plenty of feed for them still. There was loud swearing from inside the house and heavy stomping before the peephole was opened. Who the hell are you? The man demanded. Fair days on this Winter's Veil, Celestine said politely. My apprentice and I are lost and cold due to the snows. Might we have a place by your fire? There were a few moments' pause before the man, old with greying hair and a scar on his cheek, opened the door. Light's blessings be with you. There's a warm spot if your child needs it, he said as he looked at me. Late in the season for a pair of girls to be traveling. We had a meeting we couldn't miss this solstice, and it was far from home, Celestine said, stepping over the threshold. Thank you for your hospitality, good sir. I don't got no food for you. This has been a hard winter so far, and the year weren't kind either. We've got trail rations, I said, patting the saddlebags. We also had some half-frozen apples we coaxed from a tree a couple of days ago. So you won't need any. A few minutes later and we'd hitched the horses to the evergreen, Sable taking to browsing on some of the lower branches, while Hazel huddled up with him. With a blanket draped over him, they'd be okay. They could take worse weather. It still felt bad leaving them out in the cold though. I'd come to like Hazel over the journey. She was a good and sedate horse. The man's cottage was small, not much bigger than the farmhand shacks Robin gave out to his workers. Nor was the gruff old man good company, but at least it was warm and out of the wind. Celestine made us pass the time by quietly quizzing me on more herb lore, reciting the properties of winter plants and why it was okay for our horses to browse the hawthorn, but it wouldn't be okay if it had been an oak. Eventually dusk fell and we were both quite ready for sleep. I woke to a cold breeze. It was deeply dark out, but the door had been opened and closed. I could hear the telltale crunching of snow from someone walking away. Disgruntled, I immediately wanted to go back to sleep, pulling my cloak tighter around myself to keep out the cold air and pushing into Celestine. "Gwyneth," she said, getting only unintelligible grumbling back. Celestine pulled my cloak open, pressing a cold hand to my cheek. "Ha!" I started to shriek, only for the hand to move to cover my mouth and Celestine to shush me. "Quiet. Gather our things and be ready to leave," Celestine ordered. Still groggy from waking up, I blinked, processing what she said. Woken in the night. Man went out. We've got valuable horses in a near empty village off the main roads. There was concern here, and it was justifiable. I nodded my head in understanding, and Celestine let me go, leaving me to gather up our packs. I had been in situations like this with Mama before, or stay in a village gone sour and having to leave in the night. But the horses would make it harder. We'd have to lead them away slowly, which would be easily tracked, and I wasn't looking forward to it. Having them stumble if we tried to ride out at speed in the dark and snow would be bad. Resolvable, since we could heal a lame leg, but still not a good thing. With the ease of long practice, the skill still present despite not having traveled with Mama for so long, I had everything collected and tucked away quickly, ready to follow Celestine out into the cold after barely a couple of minutes. Though there should be a strong moon out, there were enough heavy clouds, still dropping snow from the skies, that it was near pitch black outside. The only reason I could see where we were going at all was the snow covering the ground and making things seem brighter. There was loud barking as several of the houses opened up, men with torches stepping out into the dark. I saw pitchforks as well, along with guns. "Celestine?" I said worriedly. "I know." She swore under her breath. "Be ready to run and hide, Gwen." "There they are!" The same man who'd let us into his house yelled. "Trying to run, you heretics! I heard you whispering on magic, don't try to deny it!" "And is there a crime in using magic?" Celestine spoke back. Not a shout, but her voice carried clearly. "A crime against nature? The church declared all you magi to be heretics years ago. We won't have foul magics cursing our land one moment longer. Get back to your cursed pit, violet monsters!" "Bugger," I muttered. Great, we wandered into one of those villages. They kept shouting their grievances as they got closer. A missing cow, an unkindness of ravens which ruined the harvest, the heavy snows this winter. And they didn't even think we were witches, just mages. Even thinking we were from Dalaran. "This is bad," I said, just loud enough Celestine could hear. She didn't say anything back to me, but in the flickering torchlight that was reaching us, I saw a minute nod of agreement. "I am Gilnean, born and bred, yet you call me mage?" Celestine laughed as a hand brushed against one of the branches of the hawthorn tree. I felt her stir it, the roots moving, the protective nature of the tree lending itself to answering her call. "I deny you. I am a proud witch of Gilneas, a student of the old ways, and we were here long before your misbegotten church sunk its claws into our land." "Demon worshipper!" one of them yelled, starting up an entirely new avenue of insults, yet they remained hesitant to approach. For a mob of only 8, they were incredibly loud. Yet though one of them held their gun pointed at us, he was young, and didn't seem as confident in what he was doing. He hadn't shouted like the others. Their mastiffs had quieted down too, though the mob didn't seem to have noticed that they were looking around in confusion rather than anger. Celestine must have gotten them without me noticing? It didn't mean we were safe. I couldn't just do nothing, like I had when the spider attacked us and I sat frozen in fear. I needed to know how to fight, something I'd have to fix later. For now, I had an idea. Celestine was working on the tree, great roots, but this was the village green. Even with all the snow, the grasses were still alive, dormant but alive. I reached out and woke them up, stirring them and slowly making them grow, little vine-like tendrils to snake up to the villagers' legs and trap them. I didn't stop getting our things up onto the horses either. It was hard splitting my attention and I lost track of what Celestine was saying to stall them, but we needed to be ready to go. The crack of a gunshot turned everything silent. "What in the name of Greyman is all this?" a man bellowed, his blunderbuss still smoking. "Larry, what am I hearing about you waking good folks up to lynch some poor girls?" "They're mages!" Larry, the man who led us into his house, screamed back. "Heretics and demon worshippers! They're the ones who got old Molly killed by those sprites, I know it!" A few of the others chimed in their agreement, and two decided enough was enough and screamed a wordless cry as they charged at us with pitchforks raised. Celestine stood firm, even while they ran straight at us. "I have never heard of this village before, nor do I know of whom you speak. And once again, I deny your accusations. I am a student of the old ways, not demons. And nor am I a mage. I am a witch." With her last words, roots ripped from the ground, grabbing the boy with the gun and yanking his arm skyward. Three of the others, slow to react to their fellow's charge, were also caught by the roots. The first of the two that charged straight at us were tangled up in my vines, tripping and becoming tied to the ground. The second found himself whipped by the branches of the tree, smack down where I quickly saw that he was tangled and trapped too. One more, Larry himself, was pinned beneath a loudly growling mastiff, while another had its mouth around his arm. Continuing as if nothing special had happened, Celestine kept talking. "Even were your claims true, it is not your place to judge nor condemn. And as for heresy..." Celestine stared him down imperiously. "King Archibald Greymane revoked all rights of the church to inflict its laws upon us decades ago." "What?" I said, confused. "He did that?" I knew there was some sentiment that the Church of the Holy Light was a Lordanian institution and its politics benefited Lordaeron more than anything, but I hadn't known Gen's father had removed authority from them. The newcomer had swung his blunderbuss towards us. An empty threat, I was pretty sure. He hadn't had a chance to reload the archaic gun. "Magic," he said simply, warily eyeing the roots trapping his fellow villagers. "Suppose Larry was right about that then. What business do you have here, witch?" He didn't sound happy nor confident, a clear wariness and fear about him. We sought shelter from the snows and were offered space by the fire. We awoke to the chill of an open door and sought to depart before trouble began. Celestine waved over the trapped, angry and now terrified men. We failed to do so. "Running like cowards?" one of the men squawked. "Says the man who brought 8 grown men to attack a single woman and a child," I snapped back at him. "Dogs too, but they like us more than you." The newcomer, now flanked by a tired-looking woman, stared at us for a time. "If you wish to leave, witch, do so. But do not ruin the girl's life with your foul business. Leave her here and..." His words made my already frazzled and on-edge emotions spill over into real anger. "Fuck off!" I screamed at him. What did he think he was saying? Trying to get me to abandon my craft because he thought it was foul? Ignorant twit. I am a witch! I have cured ills, have grown fields. I know more of magic than all of you combined. You can take your stupid Windchime workshop and shove it up your arse. My body shook as I took in great heaving breaths. "I think, good sir, you are terribly mistaken in your thoughts," Celestine said calmly into the silence that followed my outburst. "My apprentice is my kin. taught in our ways since a young age, and it is her choice to remain with me, not yours." There was a tense few moments before he lowered his blunderbuss. "Fine," he spat. "Be gone with ye witches. In the name of Greymane, you are free to depart." No one said anything else as we took our horses and left. This hadn't been the worst experience I'd had with villagers, but it came close. Traveling in the dark, making our distance from the village, was slow and cold going. Sable and Hazel only reluctantly and unhappily cooperating thanks to the promise of treats when we reached home. I couldn't wait to be home so I could tell Mama everything.